Welcome back to Sports Media Insider, the show where we bring you behind the scenes with the biggest names and the brightest minds shaping the sports media industry. Joining us is Vince Wolfram, someone who's living proof that passion and hustle can open doors. By 21, Vince founded Vince Media, launched the Big Talk podcast with Auburn basketball player Dylan Cardwell, and landed a role as an analyst with the Field of 68 Media Network. He's here to share how he's built such an impressive career so early and what it takes to break into the world of sports media. Vince, welcome to Sports Media Inside.
Jake, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here, especially because I've been seeing all your stuff on LinkedIn. I read it every week. You're doing awesome stuff, so I can't wait to jump on and talk.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. So something I really admire about your career so far is how early you started. We've talked a lot about this, but initially, what inspired you to pursue a career in sports media so early? And then how'd you overcome some of the challenges that you faced?
Yeah, I feel like every kid has that thing when they're young that makes them tick. Like they have that sport, that activity, that thing that they want to do all the time. Mine was pretty easy. It came every single morning, starting at 6 a.m. I would go down on the couch and watch SportsCenter with Stan Verrett and Neil Everett every single morning for as long as I can remember. And it wasn't like I was just sitting there watching it to watch sports or have the TV on. Like I was really into it. If I had something to do in the morning, I would at least go for top 10 plays. I had to be down there for top 10 plays. But it was something that I questioned. Like even from a young age, I was interested about why ESPN did this way. Why did SportsCenter show that clip before this clip? Why did they say it like that? Oh, I really like that. All those sorts of different things I like sort of picked up and pieced as a young kid. I questioned a lot. I was just a curious kid when it came to watching that show. But that was really the start. And that's what gauged my interest of sports media, of sports in general. Realistically, I like to play them, but seeing other people play them and seeing the stars be presented on the earliest level that I can remember on the brightest stages, that was what really, really inspired me.
I'm very similar to you. I grew up every day before fifth grade, maybe since kindergarten, honestly. I would wake up the top 10 plays before you got to go to school, and you see the little clock in the top left of the screen. You got to
Can't
leave,
beat it.
but you can't leave before the top 10.
No.
So if there's two of us sitting here, there's got to be thousands of kids in school right now who love sports and maybe who don't have the athletic prowess to, either continue playing in college or maybe even in high school who just aren't the athletic type but love sports. So what's your advice to those kids who, love sports and love sports media, but, don't always get to play?
Yeah, media is just another avenue of sports. Sports isn't just the people that play the game. I mean, look at a team, say Auburn. You're an Auburn alum. I'm in my senior year right now. You look at Auburn, the basketball team isn't just the players and the coaches. It's the social media team. It's the communications, the PR, the health and wellness, the nutritionist. It's the same way in sports if you make it much more grand scheme. Sports is the players, the coaches, the staffs, the people who make it happen behind the scenes, the people in the venues. There's so many different avenues to sports, and anyone can step into any of those roles. And that's something I wanted to be in the game. I played high school basketball, so I've always been a basketball junkie. So being able to cover basketball, while I can't play, I'm sitting at 5'10", 165. I'm not going to mess anybody up on the court anymore like I used to when I was 10, but I can still be in the game. I can still relate and build relationships with the people in the sport, whether that be the athletes and the coaches or the communications or the PR people. There's a niche for everybody in sports if that's what you want to do. And finding it, you go through some trial and error. You try things that you try everything and you see what you like and what you don't like. And then from there, you take whatever steps you need to do as somebody who's interested in sports to get yourself into the room, because once you're in the room, you're meant to be there in some capacity. That's what I always like to tell myself.
Couldn't agree more. So as someone who started so young, Vince, you started Vince Media, which obviously I've been following for as long as I've known you, and the content has only gotten better and better and better and better. The editing skills get better and better. And, obviously the talking skills, if you're a Sports Media Inside listener and this is your first time hearing from Vince, you're someone that really impresses me with how you speak in front of a camera and to a large audience. So initially, what inspired you to start Vince Media?
So I took a broadcast class in high school, and I had a professor. His name was Mike Farnan, and he used to be a cameraman at the local TV station. And I said, I had heard that, and I said, Mr. Farnan, I kind of want to see that. Like, I want to see what it's about. So he took us on a field trip, whatever. It was awesome. I absolutely loved it. And then he came to me because I had a couple of shows on our high school's TV station. And he basically said, like, I kind of want to propose something to get you in at WDRB. This is the Fox station in Louisville. And of course, as the 15, 16-year-old kid I was, I absolutely loved it. So I became the first high school sports shadow at WDRB. I was the first high school kid, and I think I was the first sports shadow as well. So it was an entirely new thing. I went for 12 weeks and shadowed the sports reporters at the local TV station, and I loved every second of it. Wow, I was writing scripts, I was reading the rundowns, I was editing VOs, I was like taking the games and writing down all the different plays, basically scribing the game on the big moments and making note of times. It was the coolest thing to me as a 15, 16-year-old, and it gave me a lot of inspiration. And then, as you know, you lived through it as well, COVID happened. What in the world was I going to do during COVID? Like, the world has stopped. I had just done a fantastic job shadow with Eric Lindsay at the University of Kentucky with their men's basketball department, because we had to do a junior job shadow day in our high school, and I loved it. It fueled my passion even more than I thought it could. And then COVID hit. I'm like, bro, come on, what are we going to do? March comes around during COVID, and I start making highlight videos. And I made them for fun since I was young. Started with Microsoft Movie Maker, whatever app was on the desktop to make videos I used. And I tried to be good at it, but how good can you be with Microsoft Movie Maker? So I started messing around with Adobe Premiere Pro, and I got to the point where I was comfortable enough to post them online. So March 26th of my junior year of high school, I started Vince Media, which was basically at the point just an Instagram page where I posted highlight videos. After my fourth video, I engaged with Matisse Thybulle, who was at the time a guard for the Philadelphia 76ers. All my buddies, I guess, helped me out too, because they were all tagging him in the comments. So he saw it and he posted on a story and was like, "This is really good." And he tagged Tobias Harris or something. Tobias Harris saw it. So the next day, obviously I'm in COVID, I edit all day. I made a video for Tobias Harris. Matisse saw it, put it on a story, and he said, "This kid is really good." And I had the fire to make videos ever since then. So during COVID, I made highlight videos for NCAA, high school, college, whatever it was, pros. I made highlight videos for anybody that I honestly was intrigued by visually on the field, on the court, whatever their play style was. If I had a thing for a video, I would do it. So that's how Vince Media came about. And from there, it took off. Everything from me, I generated a character with it. Like, I put a name to a face and started talking on the platform. I started making highlight videos for my school, promo videos, advertisement videos for sports media companies and individuals, all kinds of stuff. So Vince Media, it started as highlight videos and has ventured out in plenty of different directions.
So for someone like me who's super interested in the entrepreneurship world, I know how many kids talk such a big game about doing this or doing that. You're someone who did it practically. So what advice would you give to kids who, are talking this big game, but who are super hesitant or nervous or whatever the case may be to start their own project?
A lot of people have ideas, and it's great to have ideas. I have 100 tabs open in my head at all times. Plenty of ideas swirl around, but it's taking an idea and making it a reality. And all that takes is a little bit of courage, some editing skills, and a platform to do it. And a platform to do it would just be social media. As simple as that sounds, it's true. That's what I did. I didn't need anybody to take my stuff and send it out. I just started posting videos. And that's how I started my thing. And it's the same thing for anybody else. It takes a little bit of courage. You can talk, you can have ideas all day long. It's just a matter of putting out a product and learning and researching. There's so much to gain once you get into it. I think you realize this too, as you know, because you're a guy who's hosted podcasts and done great things in this industry. Once you get started, you learn a lot more than when you haven't started yet and you want to. Like, it's hard to gauge things when you haven't begun anything, but once you begin, oh my goodness, there's a whole new world out there of stuff that you can improve on, that you can change, that, I can add this element to this or change this about what I do right now to make it even better. And there's a lot of that. Once you get in, the best way to go is to get in and start, and you will learn so much from the second you kick off as far as you go.
Yeah, I can attest to that. It's the most rewarding feeling in the world, knowing that there's someone out
1000%.
there, even if it's one person, that there's someone out there who loves your content, who you're their go-to voice for whatever the niche audience is. For you, it's Auburn sports. Right now, it's Auburn sports. And it's awesome to know that there are thousands of people who come to your show and you're their source of information and you're the voice that they want to hear when it comes to Auburn basketball, Auburn football, Auburn, what will be Auburn baseball. It is so awesome to know. And one of the things that you're super good at is developing these professional relationships and personal relationships with athletes. Obviously started, like you mentioned, with Tybal with the Sixers and Tobias Harris. So at Auburn, you develop these relationships with guys like Dylan Cardwell, Mr. Auburn, as everyone calls him down on the plains. How do these relationships come about? Because that seems to be a commonality for you, but it's something that a lot of people really struggle with.
I love sports media, but making friends is my favorite thing in the entire world. I think that dates back to high school. I mentioned earlier I played basketball in high school. I was lucky enough to play at a school that I had 3 teammates that ended up making it to the highest level of basketball, playing in the NBA. I got one with the Celtics, one with the Memphis Grizzlies, and one with the Cavaliers. But I learned as a freshman and sophomore in high school, these are people too. And a lot of people don't really know that or accept that when they're looking to get into sports. It's like, oh, I want to work with LeBron. Well, LeBron's a dad the same way your dad is and the same way my dad is. Like, everyone is a human being at the end of the day. And I learned my freshman and sophomore year by building relationships with these dudes who, yes, they had all these highlight reels, the ball is life, whatever the high school basketball paparazzi equivalent is. They had it. They had all of that extra stuff. But when it came down to me and them, we were friends. That's really what it was. And I think I've taken that in every sport, every event that I've covered. I take that same mindset and relationship building, I guess, enjoyment that I have on a day-to-day life, whether it be with an athlete or whether it be with someone's aunt. It doesn't matter. I'm going to try to make friends with you regardless, because what's life without friends, right? So with Dylan, it's the same sort of thing. I sat down to do an interview with him. I thought it would be 20 minutes. It ended up being an hour and 20 minutes. And we literally just became friends in an hour and 20 minutes. I saw him the next day at the football game. And from there, our friendship took off. And that's what our show is. You can tell on our show, oh my gosh, we bicker so much. It's like an old married couple talking about college football. And we butt heads. We have crazy takes. Whatever it is, we do it because we're friends. It's the same way you and your roommates would at the dinner table. It's just like that. And I try to bring that mantra to everyone I cover, whether it's Dylan or whether it's any of the other 14 players on Auburn's basketball team, just to build relationships. That's what makes this industry fun, is the people in it. And if you can engage with the people in it in a way that you're comfortable with and that is entirely you, that's the most fun and most rewarding piece.
I love that. I think Big Talk is a show that I go to. Just it's like a normal podcast. It started obviously as like Auburn basketball and Auburn specific, and now it's grown, like you said, to something that's just like lifestyle. It's based around Auburn, but it's like lifestyle. It's just you guys talking about whatever you want to talk about, like normal friends talking about. It just so happens that he is Mr. Auburn and right now the face of Auburn basketball without Johni Broome. Give and take what Dylan brings to the Auburn team. But there's a lot of people who struggle with building those relationships. Like, you're very personable and you have the confidence to go talk to anybody, whether it's an NBA player or, like you said, somebody's aunt. So what advice do you have for if you're someone trying to break into the industry, how do you go about building and starting those relationships?
I'll even give you an alternative. Even if it's not person to person, say you're a writer. Say you write for auburntigers.com. If you're that person and people read your articles, they feel like they have a relationship with you. It's the same with on-air talent. The same way I think the people on TV are great and I think I would be great friends with them, the same thing happens with all these other positions. If they see you online, there's a relationship that's built. Well, you might not know it. They feel it. So when they see you in person, that's an easy way to get a head start on a relationship. And if that's something that's not entirely your cup of tea, if you don't like just randomly introducing yourselves and talking to somebody that you just met like you've known them for 15 years, that's okay. With sports comes time, and time comes different experiences, and it's going to almost require you to build relationships and talk to the people around you, whether it's learning by watching and listening, which I think I do more than I even think I do. You know what I mean? You can be in a room and you gain so much from just listening to people talk, whether it's building relationships with them. Oh, I didn't know Jake goes to Syracuse now. That's pretty cool. I'm interested in Syracuse. Maybe I'll want to text him or reach out. Something as simple as that can make things so familiar and make connections so much easier. So that's what I would say. I would say listen and then act on what you hear. Realistically, as simple as that sounds, like if you hear something and you're curious, ask. That's the easiest tactic in the world is be curious, ask questions, and I'm sure that will help lead to relationships, especially if it's something that you're not entirely comfortable with up front.
I can attest to that. Asking questions is key, right? Just be skeptical and just keep asking questions because everyone wants to teach, right? Everyone wants to know that they're being helpful. I think
Amen.
both of us do. Asking questions is so key, right? You just learn more and more. You start questioning what you think to be true in the industry. And just by learning whether your thoughts are right or wrong, take you so far. In that same point, you joined the Field of 68 Media Network this past year, and as your friend, I couldn't be more proud of the content that you
Thank
guys
you.
are putting out. So I have to ask, how did that partnership come to be?
Yeah, so Jeff Shear, who I mentioned AuburnTigers.com earlier as a random pull, but he's the head writer, he's the senior writer for the AuburnTigers.com.
By the
He
way,
puts
the
out great
best
stuff.
Auburn beat writer ever, the best professor ever, and probably the
Fantastic.
best distance runner I've ever met.
You cannot beat him. He's got the coolest Jack Frost hair I've ever seen in my life. But he was reached out to by Jeff Goodman, Rob Doster, and Trevor Valise from the Field of 68. Those are basically the two co-founders and the producer of the show because they were searching for college campuses to start individual campus team podcasts. So the Field of 68 is a basketball media network that covers national college basketball, and basically they wanted to pinpoint all growing schools or schools that have a large basketball audience and get students or recently graduated people or just local people as well into covering these sports with the Field of 68. So that's how it came about. Jeff Shear reached out to JoJo Kavanaugh, who is also a senior in journalism, sports production, and Eagle Eye TV with me. So we're awfully familiar with each other. We do Sports Night in Auburn every single week together. So when we were approached with it, we absolutely jumped right on it. We worked with Jeff Goodman and Rob Doster to formulate a show, which we ended up calling Straight Out the Jungle. And since then, it's been so much fun. It's been the joy of my senior year so far, being able to cover the number one team in college basketball, the Auburn Tigers.
I love that. And if you're interested, we'll plug that down in
Hey,
the
let's go.
comment. So obviously college basketball and the podcasting world in general is super overcrowded and it's just a super saturated market. So, and we've talked about this off camera, the amount of eyeballs that you guys reach compared to the other Field of 68 networks across the country. So what kinds of strategies do you guys put in place to make sure that your content reaches these crazy audiences?
Yeah, honestly, the Field of 68, we're pretty blessed to have such an audience. They've built an audience north of 100,000 people on Twitter and north of 30-some-odd thousand people on Instagram. So there's an audience for college basketball that, like you said, yes, it's oversaturated, but they're still fiending for that information and seeing the highlights, and they want to hear about what people have to say about Chani Broome being out. They want to hear why doesn't Bruce Pearl think that his team's the best in the country when they're number one? Like there's people that want to hear that. So putting that in front of them has been our strategy. Like we like to do our episodes, and our episodes stream live on YouTube and Twitter, which is also a new media like kind of situation where we're not streaming on TV. It's not in an abnormal place. It's right in front of you. If you're checking Twitter, it's there. If you're watching YouTube, it shows up first thing because we're live. So streaming on Twitter and YouTube has been a great help. We get around a couple thousand live viewers every episode on Twitter. So having that aspect of engagement and getting it out so people see it, while also clips. In today's world of sports media, of media in general, people aren't going to your local news station to tune into the news. They want to go look it up. They'll go look it up, and they'll probably find a 60 to 90 second reel about the story that they're looking for. And that's what we wanted to do with college basketball. You scroll on your feed and you get a minute to however it is, long as it is on Twitter, to hear us talk about what happened in last night's Auburn basketball game. And the more we can put our faces in front of you and for the audience to see it, the more that they'll want to engage, because they'll get, like I said earlier, they'll feel like they're getting to know you. And that's something I think that we've gotten across so far in just pushing content. And half of it is too that we love Auburn. So showing what Auburn is capable of and highlighting it with what we're saying about them and what we're showing about them, that's A+. Like we love that because it's producing great buzz for Auburn, and the players enjoy it too. The personnel, they love to see what we have to say about the team. So that's what I would say. Strategy is just keep pushing, push what you think is your best stuff and get it in front of people's faces, because that's how they become more familiar and how you get more listeners and how you grow at the end of the day.
Well, I personally love the fact that you guys have started going live. I think that's unique to your
Hmm.
space. I think the next evolution for you guys is finding a Twitch audience. Personal, that's another conversation for another time. That's a growing space with
100%.
plenty of eyeballs who aren't necessarily drawn from the Auburn demographic, as
Yep.
we all know.
Very true.
But for sports media professionals who aren't necessarily just in the college basketball space, I think there's a lot of trends that, transcend just what you guys are doing and what traditional media is doing. So what kinds of trends have you noticed, whether it's making your content more SEO friendly, search engine optimization friendly, and how would you recommend that other professionals or aspiring professionals maximize what those trends are?
I would say first, JoJo and I are not focused on any other media. That's one thing I've noticed is there's a lot of people who like to jump on a certain thing where when we see something that we like, we're going to put it out because we like it. And because we think that the Auburn audience will engage with it and enjoy it just as much as we do. So I think being individualistic, I guess is the way I would say that. Whatever you like, you should push, right? Like if your sports media insider stuff, you've got that and you're pushing it. Like that's become your thing and people are latching on like crazy. Like that's what it is at the end of the day. You're not going to see anything on our page that we didn't think like, oh, that's going to be a great idea for Billy Bob. Like we think it's a great idea for us, for the players. Like we're not going to put anything out that one, we're not proud of, and two, that's not ours. So being individualistic and being original, not only in the content, but in the production of the content as well. We don't ask questions that everybody's going to ask. We try to be pinpointed and we try to be straightforward in asking interesting, creative questions, maybe one of one questions. If you're lucky enough in the world, like you said, it's oversaturated. People ask a lot of questions. So if you can get one that somebody's never been asked before, that's worth the time. That's worth the trouble to push, whether it's SEO related or not, whether it's in the Instagram algorithm. If that's how the content is. We try to engage with creating content that is under that memo. So not only can the Auburn audience that's looking for it receive it, but also maybe the people who aren't or they're just college basketball fans, but we push it out in a way that is in that SEO sort of box, they can find it as well. So I guess a little bit of both, but individual content mixed with being up to date with the trends and how the platforms work is also another thing that we're always cognizant of as we're putting stuff out.
The word that's hit me over the last 5 years of being in this industry, in this world, authenticity. Making sure
Amen.
your content is authentic to who you are, what your brand is, whether it's Vince Wolfram's brand or Vince Media or Field of 68 or whatever it may be. The content has to be authentic to you and it has to come across as authentic to your audience so they want to come back to you, so they know that there's a connection between your consumer, your audience, and the product. Vince Wolfram. I think that's something that you guys have really capitalized on, especially for the Field of 68 network. And that's why your content has grown so much. So I guess looking towards the future a little bit, what's next for Vince Media or Big Talk or Field of 68 or Straight Out the Jungle? What's next for you as you look towards the future?
The Final Four. I hope, right? Fingers crossed that Auburn basketball keeps up this trend because I would love to be able to cover them throughout the month of March. I mean, even through SEC play. The SEC is the best that it's been maybe ever, but certainly over the last decade of SEC basketball. So being able to cover this team, to interview players, interview Janai Broom, Chad Baker-Mazara. We've had Bruce Pearl on a couple of times. So that is what I'm looking forward to with the rest of the basketball season and hopefully making a deep run in March as well. And Big Talk, Dylan's my guy. So as his career takes a next step, because he's an old man, he's run out of eligibility after this year, and he looks to the next steps, whether that be the NBA, G League, whatever wherever the basketball world takes him, that's where Big Talk will go. We'll keep talking shop, whether it's T Swift, whether it's Super Bowl, whether it's March Madness, whatever it is, we'll still be talking about it. So Big Talk's not going anywhere. It's just a matter of where we'll be come next year. But covering basketball, it's my thing. So as long as that I still got that tick for basketball, I'm going to keep trying to do that under whatever umbrella that may be. So that's what I hope for the future, at least. Keep covering hoops, because that's my thing.
That's a pretty good answer. We can only hope for a Final Four. As an Auburn alum myself, Syracuse obviously is not, unless something changes, is not going to be a March Madness team. But Auburn looks to be legit. So I guess I got a couple more questions about professionals in the industry. This industry is ever changing, right? It evolves faster and faster every single day. So how do you personally stay like up to date and even ahead of where the industry is going? Is it reading online? Is it YouTube? Like, how are you staying on top of all these new trends and strategies?
One, a lot of it is just learning by example, seeing what's out there, how people are doing things, jumping on new trends, new interesting ways that social media has taken. And I think that with, like I mentioned clips earlier, like when that started, it wasn't something that everybody jumped on super quick, but as it's caught up, more people have and more people have built things from it. So keeping up is one thing. While it can be hard to gauge, I think sometimes too what's new, and if it is new, does it work or does it not? While that may be difficult, it's also doing it your own way. Like I like to make graphics. Graphics are fun for me. I like to be creative. I like to add some spunk, maybe some comedy in there as well. So being, I guess the same thing, being authentic in what you put out. But as long as you're you, everything else can, I suppose the avenue that you put things out, whether it be graphics or whether you got slides on Instagram or whether you're live streaming on YouTube, the platforms can change. But as long as I'm me and you're listening to the real me, that's what I care about. The avenue, it can change. I can adapt. I'm young. I'm 21 years old. If you need me to learn something new, sure, count me in. I would love to. And I like that part of covering things in the media as well, as it is ever changing. I don't think there's been a moment, and there ever will be a moment, where I'm bored doing my job. Realistically. When's the last time you were ever like, golly, man, like this is, are we wrapped
Never.
up here? Like
I've
you're
never felt like that in sports media.
never
I
comfortable.
don't. There's
You
always
can be
something
comfortable.
changing.
It's just there's always the next thing, and whether you know it's coming or not, it's going to be there. So adapting, changing, but also maintaining that authenticity. That would be my motto, I guess, for myself and others as I go forward. Is just be ready to adapt. Be ready to adjust to whatever the situation is, whatever the face of social media, sports media, the internet, TV, whatever it is. Be ready to adapt. Always be 10 toes down in whatever is to come in your next step.
So I will ask one final question. You kind of answered it at the very end there, but I just wanted to double down on it. You have one piece of advice that you're going to give to the next generation, which is our age group, the next generation of sports media moguls. What is that piece of advice?
Very simple. 2 words. Say yes. I know you and I wouldn't be in the same spot if we had not done that. Think about the amount of things that we hear about in a day-to-day basis. Do you want to go get lunch? Do you want to go do this? And the intention is always to say yes, but a lot of times in sports, people can be intimidated by it. Oh, I don't know if I can do that. Like I said earlier, the best way to figure out whether or not you can is to do. I'm not trying to be Top Gun here and pull a Mav quote, but it's true. Like you have to not think, you have to just do. And that would be my advice. If you're somebody you know comes to you with an opportunity, hey, you want to connect to this guy? Yes. It's yes every time. And until you get to the point where you're God tier and maybe you don't have the time or the means for that, that time will come, but you got to get to that point somehow. And I think by saying yes, being in the rooms, and when you're in the rooms, you're meant to be there in some fame or fashion. That's a quote that I know I live by all the time. And I think all the time as I try to advance further and further in sports media is like, I'm supposed to be in every single room that I'm in. And I just have to know when I get there how to capitalize on it and how to make the most. And a lot of times that's all brought back down to just saying yes.
I guess that wraps up this episode of Sports Media Insider. Big thanks to you, Vince, for sharing all about your journey and advice on how you've kind of gone about breaking into the industry. If you want, go ahead, plug everything that you do, because I know there's a lot of it.
I appreciate you first for having me on, and to be the first guest on here and to talk shop with you, Jake. It's been a blast. I've had an awesome last couple of minutes hanging out, talking shop. I guess if I have to plug stuff, plug my Instagram. It's at Vince Wolfram, VinceWolfram. Twitter, same thing, add a 15 onto the end, and you can find me. And all the links to all of our stuff are in my bios. Straight Out the Jungle, Field of 68, Big Talk, Vince Media. You can check it all out there. And stay tuned, because Auburn basketball going to the chip. Just mark my words. I said it first.
I love it. I'm all on that bandwagon. I'll talk shop about Auburn basketball or Auburn sports. It's media, obviously, anytime. All those links will also be in my LinkedIn description or in the comments, wherever that is. TBD, but they'll be there with this post on LinkedIn. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to comment, like, subscribe. Everything is helpful. I love the support from everyone watching, and it is awesome to see where Sports Media Insider is going. This is just the beginning. I love it. Vince, thank you so much for your time. That's a wrap.